I asked James Driscoll to join us here today. Now, James operates an award-winning, fully regulated, licensed cannabis farm in Oregon, and he's a business partner of a friend of mine, Amazon John Easterling. So James studies soil microbiology to find ways of enhancing the therapeutic value of medicinal plants, and by understanding the soil and the natural microbiology and how that can help reduce and eliminate the use of fertilisers and pesticides and chemicals. So he grows many different, what they call chemovars, or strains of cannabis for distribution to the adult use market. And he advocates for education, the rights of all adults to make informed decisions on the use of cannabis. So I've actually asked James here to give us a little bit of an idea of what's happening in the US and around different parts of the world, because he works directly in the industry. So please welcome James.
Thank you, Kylie and Philip and Ian, for sharing all of your amazing knowledge with all of us. I learned a lot from both of those talks. Sorry I don't have any pictures for you guys to look at, so you'll just have to make do with this. I'm James Driscoll. I live in Portland, Oregon. I own and operate Laughing Dog Farms, which is a licensed legal recreational cannabis farm, which just means that we can grow cannabis and sell it to licensed dispensaries in Oregon, like the one that my partners own and operate in Corvallis called High Quality. And I wanted to come here and talk to you guys a little bit today, and I apologize, I missed a little bit of your talk, so give me a signal if I'm being redundant at all. But I wanted to talk to you guys about my experience with cannabis and what's going on with the emerging legal cannabis market in the United States. First of all, before I get started, I just like to get a feeling for how many people here have tried cannabis before? Great, yeah, quite a few of you. How many people use cannabis regularly? Right, good. And Kylie may have asked this, but how many people think that cannabis is a drug? All right, not very. Yeah, it can be confusing. There's a lot of mixed information going on out there. I think a lot of people would like us to think of cannabis as a drug, which is dangerous and should be controlled or off limits, or any of these things. But I would argue that, and I think Kylie and Philip and Ian would agree, that cannabis is not a drug, it's a plant, and human beings have been dependent on plants for our entire existence. We need plants for our food, we need plants for shelter, we need plants for medicine. They have a great amount of benefit to us, especially for the oxygen we're breathing right now. I think it's safe to say if the plants disappear, we probably aren't going to make it. So we love plants. We love plants so much that we take them into our homes, we keep them as pets. I feel good right now just because there's some plants there, although those might not be real, I'm not sure. Oh, they're real, okay, yeah. I knew that good feeling was coming from somewhere. We love plants. We have this great relationship we've always had with plants, and the cannabis plant in particular is really special in that it offers so many benefits and so many uses for us. For instance, we can crush up the seeds of a cannabis plant and get omegas, which are really good for our bodies. We can use the fibers to create things like clothing and paper and building materials like hempcrete, which has a lot of amazing properties. This stuff has an amazing strength-to-weight ratio and many other properties that I would say make it better than other building materials. And we have a history with cannabis that's at least 3,000 years old. It probably originated around the Himalayas, and we chose to carry it with us everywhere we went as we spread across this whole world. And now you can find cannabis growing pretty much anywhere, which is great. Although I'm having a hard time finding it here. So we've been dealing with this prohibition for decades where it's not been an easy access to get cannabis, and I think now we are starting to revert back to a natural state of a relationship with this plant. We're rekindling and reestablishing our relationship with this wonderful plant. So a little bit about my personal experience. I started using cannabis as a teenager, like a lot of people, I think, at least people that I grew up with. And we didn't know anything about it, really. We didn't think of it as a medicine or anything. It was just something that we did because our friends were doing it, and maybe we have a good time. But admittedly, there were varying degrees of success because we didn't understand anything about the entourage effect or terpenes or how they modulate any of those effects that we're experiencing. So it was kind of a gamble. Maybe one day we'd smoke a joint and we'd feel energetic and want to go for a hike, or maybe the next day we'd feel lethargic and antisocial and don't talk to me right now. I hope the tax guy doesn't call. And sometimes maybe we feel really euphoric or creative, or possibly we might have an anxiety attack. It was a lot of different things that could happen. And fast forward to today, now we have people teaching us all about these systems and the entourage effect and how they can modulate our experience. We know about terpenes. We know about the over 100 different cannabinoids and the many different terpenes and all the different smells and everything like that. And as a farmer, that made me very, very curious about cannabis genetics. And so I wanted to find a lot of different chemovars that express different profiles, maybe not so much zeroing in on THC and CBD, but looking at some of the other compounds like CBC or CBN, or CBG or THCV or CBDV, or even the acidic forms, non-decarboxylated forms, and their beneficial effects like Kylie and Philip talked about. And on my farm, we choose to grow everything completely organically because our mission is to make medicine and therapies for people, and we believe that an organic substance is, and I have personally experienced, organic cannabis is what gives me the most therapeutic value. And that led us to starting another company called Happy Tree Microbes, where we are basically offering a very diverse colony of microorganisms that we will inoculate into the soil to create a healthy rhizosphere or root zone for the plant, and also covering the plant's exterior surfaces as a bioprotectant. And it just helps the plant reach its full genetic potential by making sure all of that biology is present, all of the bacteria, the fungi, the protozoa, the nematodes, the earthworms, microarthropods. All of these things are really important for nutrient cycling and all of the natural ways that plants take up nutrients when we're not considering using synthetic salt-based fertilizers, which I consider to be, for a lot of ways, force-feeding the plant. Here comes the airplane, eat it, eat it, eat it. And sometimes this can cause problems, and maybe it can make the experience maybe not quite so pleasant. So for me personally, if I'm going to grow something or go to a dispensary and buy something for myself, most of the time I'm looking for something that's going to help me with pain. Because besides being the lead cultivator at Laughing Dog Farm and working with Happy Tree Microbes, I've also been teaching martial arts for a long time, been involved in martial arts for over 20 years. So I've had very many injuries, and I would say that I have chronic pain, and cannabis has helped me tremendously, not only with my pain, but to sleep. If I don't have it, I tend to toss and turn and have a hard time getting comfortable. And even outside of martial arts, a few years ago, I was involved in a pretty severe motorcycle accident which left me with 5 herniated discs, and 2 of them were ruptured. So for several months, it was really difficult for me to move around at all. And for over a year, I wasn't able to participate in any way in martial art activity, which was really difficult for me. And of course, the pain was severe, so the doctors prescribed me opiates. And so I started taking opiates for the pain. And I sometimes wonder if I had not gone down the road of getting involved in the cannabis industry, maybe perhaps right now I would still be on those opiates, because I think, as most of you know, it's very addictive. My fiance, Chloe, is here with me in Melbourne right now, and she has had a very long history of addiction, substance abuse, panic disorder, anxiety, depression, all kinds of things. She's been on a multitude of different pharmaceutical medications to combat some of these things with pretty limited success, and to the point where for several years she had developed a pretty severe agoraphobia, didn't want to go outside, was terrified that if she went out into the world, she would have a panic attack, there would be no one to help her, and so just didn't leave the house. And I've had to take her to the hospital multiple times for fear, basically just fear. And until I had a panic attack myself, I never understood, and it is a pretty terrifying thing. But now, here we are in Melbourne. She's dancing live every Sunday on Dancing with the Stars. Vote for Chloe. And facing her fears and reaching her dreams and goals. And I credit a lot of that to cannabis. And cannabis, particularly mixed with meditation, like Philip was talking about, I think these two together offer a wonderful therapy because I think how many people here have had an unpleasant experience with cannabis where maybe you had some anxiety or paranoia? Yeah, quite a few people, I would say. And sometimes it's enough to make us not want to use it anymore. But I would say that this is a great opportunity because I think cannabis is a teacher. And I think it has the ability to get us in touch with our own bodies and in tune with ourselves. And when we meditate, we can really start to look at these fears that are underlying, these anxieties underlying our day-to-day life that maybe are just under the surface and we're not quite aware of them. And then we can overcome, face, and beat those fears through meditation while using cannabis. I mean, for me, it's to the point where I often like to take a tolerance break because I'm a pretty heavy user and I can use quite a lot of cannabis. So I'll take a tolerance break for a while. And then I'll consume a great deal of cannabis trying to induce a fear response, trying to induce something like a panic attack that I can meditate through. And for me, being able to go through that, although it's terrifying at first, now I feel gives me a lot of confidence. And in my everyday life with any problems or situations that may arise, I feel like, okay, I've got this under control. And it's in a setting that's safe. I know that I'm not going to die. No one's ever died from using cannabis. There's no receptors in our brainstem which control our breathing, and even though it may feel during a panic attack like I might stop breathing, it's not going to happen. And anybody who's ever tried to meditate knows that it can be difficult. You can be there for 30 minutes and realize I've just been daydreaming this whole time, and I didn't actually do any meditating, and certainly cannabis can exacerbate that problem, for sure. But I would say just with practice, with determination, and with patience, starting small, starting 3 minutes a day or something like this, and starting with small doses and building up, I think you can develop a lot of really great mental health improvement. So onto the U.S. legal market and how it's been developing. Of course, Colorado was the first state in the U.S. to create a recreational cannabis market for adults 21 years and over. And so everybody was keeping their eyes on Colorado to see what's going to happen with this thing they're doing, this experiment they're doing. And a lot of people were bringing up a lot of concerns. They were worried that it's going to be chaos. There's going to be increases in crime. There's going to be increases in violence. There's going to be car crashes. Our young people, this is a gateway drug. They're going to lead them to harder, more dangerous drugs, cocaine and whatever. And what we saw was pretty much exactly the opposite. We saw decreases in violence and crime. We saw increases in employment and in tax revenue. And of course, as the other states saw Colorado making all that tax revenue, they decided, hey, let's get in on this. And so all the states that have legalized and made it available, we've seen not only those decreases in those things like crime and everything, but we've also seen less prescribed drugs like anti-anxiety, antidepressant, or painkillers and things like that, which I think is wonderful. Now, just to give you an idea about what the experience is like to buy some cannabis in a legal market in the United States, take for instance Oregon, where I live. You're going to get on your computer and you're going to look up a cannabis dispensary near me. There's probably, if you live in a city, going to be a bunch of them near you because as these states come online, we find that there are many, many people who are excited to get involved in this legal market. So we got lines around the block. And eventually more stores pop up. And so you have a store very close to you for the most part. Now you're going to drive to the store, you're going to stop at an ATM. You're going to get some cash because unfortunately, like they talked about earlier, it's still federally illegal in the United States. It's a Schedule I drug, meaning it's the most dangerous and has no use, which is absolutely incredible. So you're going to get some cash because the banks can't do business with the dispensaries for that reason. You're going to go to the dispensary, and you're going to go to the front, and you're going to show them your identification, proving that you're at least 21 years old, and then they're going to allow you into a room where there'll be a lot of usually glass cases and shelves which they're keeping all the different products like they went over earlier. And you'll meet a bud tender, what we call a bud tender. This is somebody that is an employee of the dispensary, and they're an expert in all the different products, and they can help guide you to what you're looking for. So the bud tender is going to ask you, what are you looking for? And this may be your first time, so you say, I don't know. And so they're going to go through and they're going to say, well, here's our flower, like Kylie talked about. This is just the bud from the plant that's been dried and cured. You keep it in a jar usually, and they can let you smell it, and you can get an idea of the terpenes that are involved in there. And then he's going to show you all the different kinds of flower that they have. There's usually maybe 10 to 20 different varieties that they've got there from all different farms. And then they're going to show you the concentrates. Some of those may just be loose in a jar, so you'd need some sort of instrument, like a rig or a bong or something, to use that. Or maybe it's going to be in a cartridge that you can attach to a battery, so it's really convenient. You can just put it in your pocket. Or there's going to be several different kinds of edibles that you can get there, topicals, all different kinds of products, drinks, everything that you can think of. And you can go through and get a little bit of everything and see which one works for you. So for me, I would probably go for the ones that I think will be good for pain, or maybe that are going to be uplifting, and maybe go for a hike, or maybe something that might help me sleep. And I can look up and find out which terpene profiles, which cannabinoid ratios would be best for those purposes. And so having this access, this easy access to these dispensaries is, I think, really importantly, lowering this opioid epidemic that we're all dealing with across the entire world, not only in the US and Australia, but everywhere. And when I come to Australia and I'm dealing with all of this pain, and I'm trying to find some medicine for myself, and I find it really difficult to do so, to find something that I know is going to be organic, and that I know that the person selling it to me, even though it's like probably on the black market, that it's not going to have any dangerous chemicals sprayed on it or anything like that. This is pretty difficult for me, and it makes me wonder, what is with the lethargic response to this declared opioid crisis here in this country? Who is blocking our access to this wonderful plant? Because nobody's dying from cannabis. Thousands of people are dying from opioids every year. So I think the usual response, I think Kylie touched on it, is that the politicians would say, well, there's just not enough studies. There's not enough studies saying that cannabis is safe, that it's not going to hurt anyone. There's not enough studies saying that cannabis is actually effective in treating any of the disorders that you say it treats. And I would say that is obviously wrong. We all just got to see several case studies, and we all just got to see a lot of information about that. And I would absolutely recommend that you do your own research. And if you're not sure where to start, I would recommend visiting greenmed.info. And there you can go into the search bar and type in cannabis and whatever condition that you're interested in. It's just going to give you a list of all the studies that are talking about those things. So I think it's time for a change. And hopefully it will come here soon. And hopefully, like in the United States, in a recreational state, citizens are allowed, if you're over 21, to grow a few plants for yourself. And I think this is the absolute best way to know exactly what's in your medicine. You can pick the genetics that work for you. You can always know that it's going to be clean and organic or whatever you prefer. And I encourage you to learn about growing cannabis when the time comes. And it's easy. It's a weed. It grows everywhere pretty easily. It's not that hard. And if you're looking for information, I would highly recommend checking out any book by Ed Rosenthal. He helped me a lot reading his books when I first started learning cannabis, and you can learn too. And I hope that together we can overcome whatever obstacles we're dealing with here. And next time I visit, I can go to a dispensary and get some cannabis. Thank you, guys.